Hey, happy April 27th. It is Sunday and we have a new moon in Taurus. I'm excited about this. And the main topic I want to cover today is open-mindedness. Open-mindedness. And I'm going to explain to you what I mean. And if you stick with me, you're going to follow my logic here. And you'll understand why I take such a strong stance and why I know that I have the authority to come out and say the things that I'm saying. So with that being said, open-mindedness, and I believe that the basis for empathy is open-mindedness, because we have to open up our minds outside of our experience to try to put ourselves in other people's shoes and having empathy for them, caring for them deeply. So I'm going to use quite a few examples, and it's going to go from a very personal to a global scale. And I'm going to do this through my own personal experiences. And if you stick with me, and if you have any desire to learn anything, or, to try and understand somebody else's perspective, that's a great word. I'm going to touch on that too. You might be able to start having a much deeper understanding of life in general. So let's do this. I have a lot of videos that touch on different things that I'm speaking about. So please, I'm trying to be as descriptive as possible in the titles, but please go, and if there's, something, there might be something in there to help you. Okay. So when I was 16 years old, I moved to South America. Okay. Now, just a little background on me. Like, I came up in a rough home. I got in the church, and then I moved down to another culture. So I came from a rough background. So I'm trying to give you kind of like this teenager that, was troubled, and now she's going down to study the Bible in another country. Okay. So with that being said, I had my worldview of the outside world when I was a teenager, it was shaped by my surroundings. And then I go to a different country where I'm exposed to different cultures. I'm exposed to different food. I'm exposed to different ways of living. Okay. I looked at how they did things versus how we did things in our culture. And sometimes I'd be like, wow, that's brilliant. Sometimes I'd be like, ooh, wait, I have a better way of doing it. But even still, when you think about who you are culturally and what you were raised around, it just depends. That heavily influences your mind frame around things. Okay. But see, here's the thing. I've been exposed to so many walks of life and so many different types of people. And I've been able to start seeing the world, not just through my lens, but the lens of all these other people. And that's also part of how I've been able to see and work through my deep pain and help identify other people's deep pains, and why I can help pinpoint certain things, because I've seen, guys, open your minds. So we did that, living in other cultures. Think about different home lives. Think about the person that grew up in a suburban New York, what is it called? Suburb or whatever. And versus the person that grew up in the Bronx. Can you imagine how those two people have a very different view of how things go? Okay, let's keep rolling with this. Think about, Christianity. I have people that are sitting here, preaching Jesus, which, okay, that's fine. But just like in these other situations, think about all the other religions around the world. Christians think they're right? Well, if that's the case, then why are there all these other religions? Because God is a God of clarity, correct? Right? God is a God of clarity. Us humans tend to mix in things to make it unclear. So I'm pretty sure that if I'm sitting out here saying blasphemous things and I'm teaching against what the truth is, if this God source thing is really real, then it's probably going to put me in my place. And it's probably going to, not going to work out for me. So, if you're listening to me and you're like, well, that's totally contrary to what I believe, then why are you even worried about it? Don't be worried about it. Go do your thing. You don't even have to be watching this. Like, I'm good with that. Trust me, I'm good with that. But I will tell you, when you have people from all over the world getting the same message that I am, there, and we all look at it different pieces. You have to understand that, those people that studied, what is it, Jehovah's Witnesses, is it Adam with the glasses, Adam Smith or something, like John Smith or something. Why did they think theirs was truth? Why do the Buddhists follow Buddhism? The Islamics follow Islam. Why do we have all these different religions? And it's because God used different people at different times to speak to different peoples in different times. Like, come on, guys. The Bible is not the only sacred word. Actually, everything's sacred. Everything, even the words that we see around everywhere, everything is sacred, but we don't view it as such. No, you guys have to understand that evil it's incredibly smart. It's set up all of these systems to ensnare us from not being able to see the truth in its entirety. So through this whole message, what I'm trying to say is open your mind. Just open up yourself to the possibility, just a little bit, okay? Do the research, that there might be something more than what you have been potentially taught, okay? And if you open up to think that God could actually talk to you outside of the parameters that you believe he works, you might start opening up yourself to a whole new level. So open your mind. And guess what? God's not going to squash you for thinking something. He wants you to test it. Test the thoughts. Even the Bible talks about that. Don't just take things. Okay, don't just take it from me. Don't just take it from the other sources either. Do your own research. What feels right? And a lot of people will tell me, don't follow your emotions. God gave us emotions. But when we are unhealed in our hearts, minds, souls, when we're unhealed, sometimes that intuition, it gets blocked or it gets read wrong because the negative emotion that's around us blocks that. That's why we have to heal ourselves. So God is wanting to speak to us through everything, okay? Open yourself up. Go look up numerology. Look at energy. Look at astrology. Look at the science behind all of these things. Don't just take my word for it. You think about what do modern prophets, like, did God say specifically what they were going to look like? How do you know that a prophet is a prophet? What are your, do you have a worksheet that you could show me to know whether or not you're hearing from a prophet that God is speaking through? How do you know? I'm curious, please. I know, but that's because these things have been revealed. And listen, I'm not the only one, guys. These truths have been revealed. And so what part of our job is to come in and stir the minds. Don't just take my word for it. I'm stirring your mind. Open yourself to the possibility. If you had the faith of a mustard seed, you could move a mountain. So are we just going to take some parts literal and not other parts? I mean, you have to look at it. There's definitely, there's parables and there's different stories that Jesus told that weren't literal stories, but it got across the idea. So when you look at different texts, excuse me, when you look at different texts, you can't read poetry the same way you would read a biography. You can't read a biography the same way that you would read, a philosophical type form of communication. Like you have to look at everything within its context. So when I tell you these things go deep, it's because you have to go down layers, okay? We have had as Americans, and I'm going to pick on Americans here for a second. We are very narrow-minded people. We are very prideful people. We are very shallow people. Okay, I'm going to tell you this because I've traveled the world, okay? Americans are some of the most closed-minded people you will ever meet. They feel entitled. When they travel around the world, they automatically expect everybody to start catering them. I see it all the time. It's ridiculous. Now, obviously, there's exceptions to the rule. There's always exceptions to the rule. But generally speaking, that is the air that people get from us around the world. I've had it communicated back to me numerous times. right? And so I've also spoken to a lot of Americans that have no interest in traveling around the world. So our view of God is, think about it. Our view of God is in the capacity that we have to understand everything that's at our disposal to learn about. Technology is at our fingertips. We can literally learn anything we want to at the tip of our fingertips for zero cost. Seriously. But we're so up here in the superficial and the shallow, and we're not forcing our thoughts. We're happy with dancing videos and monkeys dancing around and, scrolling endlessly, watching other people's drama, not paying attention to ourselves. Think about it, guys. Open up your mind. God is much bigger. So, and I had somebody talking recently about, Christians being murdered in the jungle. I believe it. Okay. So the perspective you guys have is, wow, they went in there with their faith and, they got persecuted. Or we could look at the other side of it. We can say, maybe those Indians were perfectly happy because God has revealed himself to them in a very personal, real way. And so when these Christians start coming in and start talking about this God that's foreign to them, they're thinking they're fucking the devil, and they're thinking they're in right. Just think about that. Change your perspective. Don't have your narrow-minded, oh, we're a Christian, we get persecuted, blah, blah, blah. Nah. Perspective. It's all about perspective. You see a 6 and you turn it around and others see a 9. So open your minds, guys. Open your minds, guys. And, think about it. What happened 200,000 years ago before the Judeo-Christian God the Father and Jesus showed up? Who was there? Now, I'm not saying I'm not saying all of that isn't real, but God has revealed himself to different peoples at different times in different ways. Think about the drawings in the caves, before they figured out how to make paper. And come on, guys, everything's connected. All right. Open-mindedness. So when we start opening up our minds and we start understanding how different we each are, and we actually try to put ourselves in, see this whole open-mindedness also helps you to have empathy, because then you can start really understanding where people's motives are coming from, because you start understanding the deeper things. But you guys, open-mindedness, it's a valuable commodity. And trust me, if you start searching for things, think about it. Maybe God's wanting you to do this. Maybe God wants you to experience him on a different level. Come on, guys.